Chapters 9 to 14 of 2 Kings from the World English Bible. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording by Anna Roberts. 2 Kings from the World English Bible. Chapters 9 to 14. Chapter 9. Elisha the prophet called one of the sons of the prophets, and said to him, "Put your belt on your waist, take this vial of oil in your hand, and go to Ramoth-Gilead. When you come there, find Jehu the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, and go in, and make him arise up from among his brothers, and carry him to an inner room. Then take the vial of oil, and pour it on his head, and say, 'Thus says Yahweh, I have anointed you king over Israel.' Then open the door, flee, and don't wait." So the young man, even the young man the prophet, went to Ramoth-Gilead. When he came, behold, the captains of the army were sitting. Then he said, "I have a message for you, captain." Jehu said, "To which of us all?" He said, "To you, O captain." He arose and went into the house. Then he poured the oil on his head, and said to him, "Thus says Yahweh, the God of Israel, I have anointed you king over the people of Yahweh, even over Israel. You shall strike the house of Ahab your master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants the prophets, and the blood of all the servants of Yahweh, at the hand of Jezebel. For the whole house of Ahab shall perish. I will cut off from Ahab everyone who urinates against a wall, both him who is shut up, and him who is left at large in Israel. I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah. The dogs will eat Jezebel on the plot of ground of Jezreel, and there shall be none to bury her." He opened the door and fled. Then Jehu came forth to the servants of his lord, and one said to him, "Is all well? Why did this mad fellow come to you?" He said to them, "You know the man and what his talk was." They said, "That is a lie. Tell us now." He said to me, "Thus says Yahweh, I have anointed you king over Israel." Then they hurried, and every man took his garment, and put it under him on the top of the stairs, and blew the trumpet, saying, "Jehu is king." So Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, conspired against Joram. Now Joram was keeping Ramoth-Gilead, he and all Israel, because of Hazael king of Syria. But King Joram was returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Syrians had given him, when he fought with Hazael king of Syria. Jehu said, "If this is your thinking, then let no one escape and go out of the city, to go to tell it in Jezreel." So Jehu rode in a chariot, and went to Jezreel, for Joram lay there. Ahaziah king of Judah had come down to see Joram. Now the watchman was standing on the tower in Jezreel, and he spied the company of Jehu as he came, and said, "I see a company." Joram said, "Take a horseman, and send to meet them, and let him say, 'Is it peace?'" So there went one on horseback to meet him, and said, "Thus says the king, 'Is it peace?'" Jehu said, "What do you have to do with peace? Fall in behind me." The watchman said, "The messenger came to them, but he isn't coming back." Then he sent out a second on horseback, who came to them, and said, "Thus says the king, 'Is it peace?'" Jehu answered, "What do you have to do with peace? Fall in behind me." The watchman said, "He came to them and isn't coming back. The driving is like the driving of Jehu the son of Nimshi, for he drives furiously." Joram said, "Get ready." They got his chariot ready. Joram king of Israel and Ahaziah king of Judah went out, each in his chariot, and they went out to meet Jehu, and found him in the portion of Naboth the Jezreelite. It happened, when Joram saw Jehu, that he said, "Is it peace, Jehu?" He answered, "What peace, so long as the prostitution of your mother Jezebel and her witchcraft abound?" Joram turned his hands and fled, and said to Ahaziah, "There is treason, Ahaziah." Jehu drew his bow with his full strength, and struck Joram between his arms, and the arrow went out at his heart, and he sunk down in his chariot. Then Jehu said to Bidkar his captain, "Pick him up, and throw him in the plot of the field of Naboth the Jezreelite. For remember how, when you and I rode together after Ahab his father, Yahweh laid this burden on him. Surely I have seen yesterday the blood of Naboth, and the blood of his sons, says Yahweh, and I will repay you in this plot of ground, says Yahweh. Now therefore take and cast him onto the plot of ground, according to the word of Yahweh." But when Ahaziah the king of Judah saw this, he fled by the way of the garden house. Jehu followed after him, and said, "Strike him also in the chariot." They struck him at the ascent of Gur, which is by Ibleam. He fled to Megiddo, and died there. His servants carried him in a chariot to Jerusalem, and buried him in his tomb with his fathers, in the city of David. In the 11th year of Joram the son of Ahab began Ahaziah to reign over Judah. When Jehu had come to Jezreel, Jezebel heard of it, and she painted her eyes, and attired her head, and looked out at the window. As Jehu entered in at the gate, she said, "Do you come in peace, Zimri, you murderer of your master?" He lifted up his face to the window, and said, "Who is on my side, who?" 2 or 3 eunuchs looked out at him. He said, "Throw her down." So they threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall, and on the horses. Then he trampled her under foot. When he had come in, he ate and drank, and he said, "See now to this cursed woman, and bury her, for she is a king's daughter." They went to bury her, but they found no more of her than the skull, and the feet, and the palms of her hands. Therefore they came back and told him. He said, "This is the word of Yahweh which he spoke by his servant Elijah the Tishbite, saying, The dogs will eat the flesh of Jezebel on the plot of Jezreel, and the body of Jezebel shall be as dung on the face of the field in the portion of Jezreel, so that they shall not say, This is Jezebel." Chapter 10. Now Ahab had 70 sons in Samaria. Jehu wrote letters, and sent to Samaria to the rulers of Jezreel, even the elders, and to those who brought up the sons of Ahab, saying, Now as soon as this letter comes to you, since your master's sons are with you, and there are with you chariots and horses, a fortified city also, and armor, select the best and fittest of your master's sons, set him on his father's throne, and fight for your master's house. But they were exceedingly afraid, and said, Behold, the 2 kings didn't stand before him. How then shall we stand? He who was over the household, and he who was over the city, the elders also, and those who raised the children, sent to Jehu, saying, We are your servants, and will do all that you ask us. We will not make any man king. You do that which is good in your eyes. Then he wrote a letter the 2nd time to them, saying, If you are on my side, and if you will listen to my voice, take the heads of the men your master's sons, and come to me to Jezreel by tomorrow this time. Now the king's sons, being 70 persons, were with the great men of the city, who brought them up. It happened, when the letter came to them, that they took the king's sons, and killed them, even 70 persons, and put their heads in baskets, and sent them to him to Jezreel. A messenger came and told him, They have brought the heads of the king's sons. He said, Lay them in 2 heaps at the entrance of the gate until the morning. It happened in the morning that he went out and stood and said to all the people, You are righteous. Behold, I conspired against my master and killed him, but who struck all these? Know now that nothing shall fall to the earth of the word of Yahweh, which Yahweh spoke concerning the house of Ahab. For Yahweh has done that which he spoke by his servant Elijah. So Jehu struck all that remained of the house of Ahab in Jezreel, with all his great men, his familiar friends, and his priests, until he left none remaining. He arose and departed and went to Samaria. As he was at the shearing house of the shepherds on the way, Jehu met with the brothers of Ahaziah king of Judah, and said, Who are you? They answered, We are the brothers of Ahaziah. We are going down to greet the children of the king and the children of the queen. He said, Take them alive. They took them alive and killed them at the pit of the shearing house, even 42 men. He didn't leave any of them. When he had departed from there, he met Jehonadab, the son of Rechab, coming to meet him. He greeted him and said to him, Is your heart right, as my heart is with your heart? Jehonadab answered, It is. If it is, give me your hand. He gave him his hand, and he took him up to him into the chariot. He said, Come with me, and see my zeal for Yahweh. So they made him ride in his chariot. When he came to Samaria, he struck all who remained to Ahab in Samaria, until he had destroyed him, according to the word of Yahweh, which he spoke to Elijah. Jehu gathered all the people together, and said to them, Ahab served Baal a little, but Jehu will serve him much. Now therefore call to me all the prophets of Baal, all of his worshippers, and all of his priests. Let none be absent, for I have a great sacrifice to Baal. Whoever is absent, he shall not live. But Jehu did it in subtlety, intending that he might destroy the worshippers of Baal. Jehu said, Sanctify a solemn assembly for Baal. They proclaimed it. Jehu sent through all Israel, and all the worshippers of Baal came, so that there was not a man left that didn't come. They went into the house of Baal, and the house of Baal was filled from one end to another. He said to him who was over the vestry, Bring out robes for all the worshippers of Baal. He brought robes out to them. Jehu went with Jehonadab the son of Rechab into the house of Baal. Then he said to the worshippers of Baal, Search, and look that there are here with you none of the servants of Yahweh, but the worshippers of Baal only. They went in to offer sacrifices and burnt offerings. Now Jehu had appointed him 80 men outside, and said, If any of the men, whom I bring into your hands, escape, he who lets him go, his life shall be for the life of him. It happened, as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, that Jehu said to the guard and to the captains, Go in and kill them, let none escape. They struck them with the edge of the sword, and the guard and captains cast them out, and went to the city of the house of Baal. They brought out the pillars that were in the house of Baal, and burned them. They broke down the pillar of Baal, and broke down the house of Baal, and made it a latrine to this day. Thus Jehu destroyed Baal out of Israel. However, from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, with which he made Israel to sin, Jehu didn't depart from after them, the golden calves that were in Bethel, and that were in Dan. Yahweh said to Jehu, Because you have done well in executing that which is right in my eyes, and have done to the house of Ahab according to all that was in my heart, your sons to the 4th generation shall sit on the throne of Israel. But Jehu took no heed to walk in the law of Yahweh, the God of Israel, with all his heart. He didn't depart from the sins of Jeroboam, with which he made Israel to sin. In those days Yahweh began to cut off from Israel, and Hazael struck them in all the borders of Israel, from the Jordan eastward, all the land of Gilead, the Gadites, and the Reubenites, and the Manassites, from Aroer, which is by the valley of Arnon, even Gilead and Bashan. Now the rest of the acts of Jehu, and all that he did, and all his might, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? Jehu slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria. Jehoahaz his son reigned in his place. The time that Jehu reigned over Israel in Samaria was 28 years. Chapter 11. Now when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Joram, sister of Ahaziah, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the king's sons who were slain, even him and his nurse, and put them in the bedroom, and they hid him from Athaliah, so that he was not slain. He was with her, hidden in the house of Yahweh, 6 years. Athaliah reigned over the land. In the 7th year Jehoiada sent and fetched the captains over hundreds of the Kerites and of the guard, and brought them to him in the house of Yahweh. And he made a covenant with them, and took an oath of them in the house of Yahweh, and showed them the king's son. He commanded them, saying, This is the thing that you shall do. A 3rd part of you, who come in on the Sabbath, shall be keepers of the watch of the king's house. A 3rd part shall be at the gate Sur, and a 3rd part at the gate behind the guard. So you shall keep the watch of the house, and be a barrier. The 2 companies of you, even all who go out on the Sabbath, shall keep the watch of the house of Yahweh around the king. You shall surround the king, every man with his weapons in his hand, and he who comes within the ranks, let him be slain. Be with the king when he goes out, and when he comes in. The captains over hundreds did according to all that Jehoiada the priest commanded, and they took every man his men, those who were to come in on the Sabbath, and those who were to go out on the Sabbath, and came to Jehoiada the priest. The priest delivered to the captains over hundreds the spears and shields that had been King David's, which were in the house of Yahweh. The guards stood, every man with his weapons in his hand, from the right side of the house to the left side of the house, along by the altar and the house, around the king. Then he brought out the king's son, and put the crown on him, and gave him the testimony. And they made him king, and anointed him, and they clapped their hands, and said, Long live the king! When Athaliah heard the noise of the guard and of the people, she came to the people into the house of Yahweh. And she looked, and behold, the king stood by the pillar, as the tradition was, and the captains and the trumpets by the king, and all the people of the land rejoiced, and blew trumpets. Then Athaliah tore her clothes, and cried, Treason! Treason! Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains of hundreds who were set over the army, and said to them, Bring her out between the ranks, kill him who follows her with the sword. For the priests said, Don't let her be slain in the house of Yahweh. So they made way for her, and she went out by the way of the horses' entry to the king's house. She was slain there. Jehoiada made a covenant between Yahweh and the king and the people, that they should be Yahweh's people, between the king also and the people. All the people of the land went to the house of Baal, and broke it down. His altars and his images broke they in pieces thoroughly, and killed Mattan the priest of Baal before the altars. The priests appointed officers over the house of Yahweh. He took the captains over hundreds, and the Kerites, and the guard, and all the people of the land, and they brought down the king from the house of Yahweh, and came by the way of the gate of the guard to the king's house. He sat on the throne of the kings. So all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet. Athaliah they had slain with the sword at the king's house. Jehoash was 7 years old when he began to reign. Chapter 12. In the 7th year of Jehu began Jehoash to reign, and he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Zibiah of Beersheba. Jehoash did that which was right in the eyes of Yahweh all his days, in which Jehoiada the priest instructed him. However, the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and burnt incense in the high places. Jehoash said to the priests, "All the money of the holy things that is brought into the house of Yahweh, in current money, the money of the persons for whom each man is rated, and all the money that it comes into any man's heart to bring into the house of Yahweh, let the priests take it to them, every man from his acquaintance, and they shall repair the breaches of the house, wherever any breach shall be found." But it was so, that in the 23rd year of King Jehoash the priests had not repaired the breaches of the house. Then King Jehoash called for Jehoiada the priest, and for the other priests, and said to them, "Why don't you repair the breaches of the house? Now therefore take no more money from your treasurers, but deliver it for the breaches of the house." The priests consented that they should take no more money from the people, neither repair the breaches of the house. But Jehoiada the priest took a chest, and bored a hole in its lid, and set it beside the altar, on the right side as one comes into the house of Yahweh. And the priests who kept the threshold put therein all the money that was brought into the house of Yahweh. It was so, when they saw that there was much money in the chest, that the king's scribe and the high priests came up, and they put up in bags, and counted the money that was found in the house of Yahweh. They gave the money that was weighed out into the hands of those who did the work, who had the oversight of the house of Yahweh, and they paid it out to the carpenters and the builders who worked on the house of Yahweh, and to the masons and the stone cutters, for buying timber and cut stone to repair the breaches of the house of Yahweh, and for all that was laid out for the house to repair it. But there were not made for the house of Yahweh cups of silver, snuffers, basins, trumpets, any vessels of gold, or vessels of silver, of the money that was brought into the house of Yahweh, for they gave that to those who did the work, and repaired therewith the house of Yahweh. Moreover, they didn't demand an accounting from the men into whose hand they delivered the money, to give it to those who did the work, for they dealt faithfully. The money for the trespass offerings, and the money for the sin offerings, was not brought into the house of Yahweh, it was the priests. Then Hazael king of Syria went up, and fought against Gath, and took it, and Hazael set his face to go up to Jerusalem. Jehoash king of Judah took all the holy things that Jehoshaphat and Jehoram and Ahaziah, his fathers, kings of Judah, had dedicated, and his own holy things, and all the gold that was found in the treasures of the house of Yahweh, and of the king's house, and sent it to Hazael king of Syria, and he went away from Jerusalem. Now the rest of the acts of Joash and all that he did, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? His servants arose and made a conspiracy, and struck Joash at the house of Millo, on the way that goes down to Silla. For Jozachar the son of Shimeath, and Jehozabad the son of Shomer, his servants, struck him, and he died, and they buried him with his fathers in the city of David, and Amaziah his son reigned in his place. Chapter 13. In the 23rd year of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, king of Judah, Jehoahaz the son of Jahab began to reign over Israel and Samaria for 17 years. He did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh, and followed the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, with which he made Israel to sin. He didn't depart from it. The anger of Yahweh was kindled against Israel, and he delivered them into the hand of Hazael king of Syria, and into the hand of Ben-Hadad the son of Hazael, continually. Jehoahaz begged Yahweh, and Yahweh listened to him, for he saw the oppression of Israel, how that the king of Syria oppressed them. Yahweh gave Israel a Saviour, so that they went out from under the hand of the Syrians, and the children of Israel lived in their tents as before. Nevertheless, they didn't depart from the sins of the house of Jeroboam, with which he made Israel to sin, but walked therein, and there remained the Asherah also in Samaria. For he didn't leave to Jehoahaz of the people any more than 50 horsemen, and 10 chariots, and 10,000 footmen, for the king of Syria destroyed them, and made them like the dust in threshing. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoahaz, and all that he did, and his might, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? Jehoahaz slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria, and Joash his son reigned in his place. In the 37th year of Joash king of Judah, Jehoash the son of Jehoahaz began to reign over Israel and Samaria for 16 years. He did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh. He didn't depart from all the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, with which he made Israel to sin, but he walked therein. Now the rest of the acts of Joash, and all that he did, and his might with which he fought against Amaziah king of Judah, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? Joash slept with his fathers, and Jeroboam sat on his throne, and Joash was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. Now Elisha was fallen sick, of his sickness of which he died. And Joash the king of Israel came down to him, and wept over him, and said, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen. Elisha said to him, take bow and arrows. And he took to him bow and arrows. He said to the king of Israel, put your hand on the bow. And he put his hand on it. Elisha laid his hands on the king's hands. He said, open the window eastward. And he opened it. Then Elisha said, shoot. And he shot. He said, Yahweh's arrow of victory, even the arrow of victory over Syria, for you shall strike the Syrians in Aphek, until you have consumed them. He said, take the arrows, and he took them. He said to the king of Israel, strike the ground, and he struck 3 times and stopped. The man of God was angry with him, and said, you should have struck 5 or 6 times. Then you would have struck Syria until you had consumed it, whereas now you shall strike Syria just 3 times. Elisha died, and they buried him. Now the bands of the Moabites invaded the land at the coming in of the year. It happened as they were burying a man, that behold, they spied a band, and they cast the man into the tomb of Elisha, and as soon as the man touched the bones of Elisha, he revived, and stood up on his feet. Hazael king of Syria oppressed Israel all the days of Jehoahaz. But Yahweh was gracious to them, and had compassion on them, and had respect to them, because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and would not destroy them, neither cast he them from his presence as yet. Hazael king of Syria died, and Benhadad his son reigned in his place. Jehoash the son of Jehoahaz took again out of the hand of Benhadad the son of Hazael the cities which he had taken out of the hand of Jehoahaz his father by war. Joash struck him 3 times, and recovered the cities of Israel. Chapter 14. In the 2nd year of Joash son of Joahaz king of Israel began Amaziah the son of Joash king of Judah to reign. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jehoaddin of Jerusalem. He did that which was right in the eyes of Yahweh, yet not like David his father. He did according to all that Joash his father had done. However, the high places were not taken away, the people still sacrificed and burnt incense in the high places. It happened, as soon as the kingdom was established in his hand, that he killed his servants who had slain the king his father, but the children of the murderers he didn't put to death, according to that which is written in the book of the law of Moses, as Yahweh commanded, saying, the fathers shall not be put to death for the children, nor the children be put to death for the fathers, but every man shall die for his own sin. He killed of Edom in the valley of Salt 10,000, and took Selah by war, and called its name Joktheel, to this day. Then Amaziah sent messengers to Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, king of Israel, saying, come, let us look one another in the face. Jehoash the king of Israel sent to Amaziah king of Judah, saying, the thistle that was in Lebanon sent to the cedar that was in Lebanon, saying, give your daughter to my son as wife. Then a wild animal that was in Lebanon passed by, and trampled down the thistle. You have indeed struck Edom, and your heart has lifted you up. Enjoy the glory of it, and stay at home, for why should you meddle to your harm, that you should fall, even you, and Judah with you? But Amaziah would not listen. So Jehoash king of Israel went up, and he and Amaziah king of Judah looked one another in the face, at Beth-shemesh, which belongs to Judah. Judah was defeated by Israel, and they fled every man to his tent. Jehoash king of Israel took Amaziah king of Judah, the son of Jehoash, the son of Ahaziah, at Beth-shemesh, and came to Jerusalem, and broke down the wall of Jerusalem, from the gate of Ephraim to the corner gate, 400 cubits. He took all the gold and silver, and all the vessels that were found in the house of Yahweh, and in the treasures of the king's house, the hostages also, and returned to Samaria. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoash which he did, in his might, and how he fought with Amaziah king of Judah, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? Jehoash slept with his fathers, and was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel, and Jeroboam his son reigned in his place. Amaziah the son of Joash, king of Judah, lived after the death of Jehoash son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel, 15 years. Now the rest of the acts of Amaziah, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? They made a conspiracy against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish, but they sent after him to Lachish, and killed him there. They brought him on horses, and he was buried at Jerusalem with his fathers in the city of David. All the people of Judah took Azariah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in the palace of his father Amaziah. He built Elath, and restored it to Judah. After that the king slept with his fathers. In the 15th year of Amaziah the son of Joash king of Judah, Jeroboam the son of Joash king of Israel began to reign in Samaria for 41 years. He did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh. He didn't depart from all the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, with which he made Israel to sin. He restored the border of Israel from the entrance of Hamath to the sea of the Arabah, according to the word of Yahweh the God of Israel, which he spoke by his servant Jonah the son of Amittai the prophet, who was of Gath-hepher. For Yahweh saw the affliction of Israel, that it was very bitter. For there was none shut up, nor left at large, neither was there any helper for Israel. Yahweh didn't say that he would blot out the name of Israel from under the sky, but he saved them by the hand of Jeroboam the son of Joash. Now the rest of the acts of Jeroboam, and all that he did, and his might, how he warred, and how he recovered Damascus and Hamath, which had belonged to Judah, for Israel, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? Jeroboam slept with his fathers, even with the kings of Israel, and Zechariah his son reigned in his place. End of chapters 9 to 14 of 2 Kings.